Hello everyone, I am Dr. Garima Srivastava from Lal Bahadur Shastri College, Indiranagar. I am going to talk on the topic international investment theories. In the last lectures, I have already taught about international trade theories, which told about the patterns in which we have to analyze the patterns of export and import within the countries. Now, we needed to study these patterns. Why? Because when a country needs to expand its business, then it needs to see that whether it will be helpful in export ideas or in import ideas. So, for that purpose we started to export or import. Then of course, if we are not exporting or importing any of the product or services, then how can we engage our business or how can we expand our business? This can be done through investments. So, of course, like trade theories, we need to also understand the investment theories through which the countries can invest their money, their capital into another countries and expand their business, and moreover they can save their domestic market to be over exploited through imports. Now, of course, investments means it is of two categories, that is portfolio investments and direct investments. We can also call it as foreign portfolio investment or foreign direct investments. Now, portfolio investment, portfolio means you can call it as a bucket which will consist of a number of stocks, bonds or assets or shares that you buy from the stock exchanges and of different country, and you make it as a bucket in your own country. So, that is why it is called as a portfolio, and it does not has any controlling over the security issuer by the investor. Similarly, on the other hand, we have foreign direct investment where we can acquire foreign assets, we can directly invest our money into the foreign manufacturing units or factories or businesses where we can control them. So, basic aim of portfolio investment and direct investment is that we need to see whether we want to control those assets or whether we do not want to control them. So, if we want to have a control over the management, we will go for foreign direct investment where we will be investing the capital in the other country, or on the other hand we will be going for foreign portfolio investment if we are going to invest our money into stocks, bonds and financial assets. So, there comes theories of international investment. Now, like the patterns of international trade, we also need to understand the patterns of investment to so as to invest our money as a country into another country. Now, why do we do so? So that our investment in some time in future give us certain returns. So, this investment can be done in the through following test of following theories. Now, for the purpose of this lecture, I will be taking up the first two theories in this lecture and then last three in the next lecture. Now, the first one is theory of capital movement. Now, what do we understand by capital? Of course, for this theory we need to understand what is capital. Capital means movement or flow of financial resources from one country to another. That means you are going to invest your money, invest your currency into some other country by one way or the other. This is called theory of capital movement, and when we do so, the country gets some kind of return on this investment, or they can give employment opportunity in that particular country. So, it is basically done to adjust the balance of payment disequilibrium or for expanding production frontier. Now, balance of payment disequilibrium is created when the number of imports are exceeding the number of exports, or the number of exports are exceeding the number of imports. So as to balance this increase or decrease in exports or imports, we need to do this kind of investment. So, countries go for foreign direct investment or foreign portfolio investment through capital movement. So, basically capital movement is done for the purpose of production frontier, where the country invests into the plants or into the manufacturing units of different countries so as to increase their production front. So, of course, for that manufacturing process can be done in the same country itself, but while doing so, a number of costs will be included when we will export this product to another country. So, why not go for production in the same country itself? then it is necessary to distinguish the international capital movement from the payment of imports. Now, it is not the same, the movement of capital is not the same as we pay for the imports. Movement of imports is a kind of debt that a country bears when the product or services are bought or purchased from some other country. So, we need to pay for these products or services. This is done in the way of payment of imports, but capital movement means our own money, which is not a debt. We are going to invest this money into another country. So, capital movement may either be meant for financing the deficits in the BOP, balance of payments. That means, whenever the deficit is created when more number of imports are there and the number of exports are less. So, there is a deficit created in the economic structure of a company. So, as to bring an equilibrium in this deficit, a country starts to move its capital into the another country, so that it can earn on that capital and reduce its debts that is being created through over importing, and for bringing about net increase in the productive capacity of the economy. And of course, for this purpose, when we are going to invest, we will be increasing on the production capacity of a company. So, in this context, real capital movements are significant. That means, we need to see what kind of capital is being moved from one country to another. All the other capitals are not included in the capital movement theory. So, for that purpose, we need to understand which kind of capitals are included in this theory. The development of Britain, USA, Canada, Australia and many other countries took place by the virtue of foreign capital, because these countries have been in developing stage for a very long time, and nowadays they can be termed as developed countries. So, of course, how will developed countries keep growing? They will do so by the way of this particular capital movement theory, wherein these countries may expend their capital in the other country by investing in the other country, in the businesses of the other country, and expand their business. During the interwar period, major development was that United States got transformed from a net international debtor. You can see United States was also a international debtor, but through this theory, through this particular business theory, it also became a significant net creditor country these days. It has come under the category of developed country. So, it is very necessary to check out that whether we are able to invest our capital, we are able to move our capital money from our country to the other country. So, we need to understand classification of the international capital. So, we have 4 kinds of capital which are considered as international capital. The very first one is home or foreign capital, investment undertaken by the residents of the home country. Now, we need to understand which one is the home country. Home country is referred to that country from where we are going to operate. So, for example, if we are living in India, India is our home country, and if we are going to operate with USA, USA is the host country, or you can call it a foreign country. So, investment undertaken by the residents in home country in India, if they are doing any kind of investment in the foreign countries, this denote home capital. That means, the money is coming within your country from that foreign country while our investment. So, if I invest in any of the stock of USA, of course, the money will be coming in our home itself. On the opposite end, if the investments done by foreigners in the home country, it consists of foreign capital. That means, if foreigners, if a member from another foreign country invest in our country, that is called as foreign capital. So, this is the first kind of movement, home and foreign capital, which can be moved as an investment between two countries. The inflow of capital from abroad is the credit. That means, whatever is coming in from a foreigner or a foreign customer is a credit item, whereas outflow of the capital from the foreign countries is the debit item. The difference between the debit and credits on the accounts of capital movement represent the net foreign investment, which may be either positive or negative. Of course, if more inflow will be there, it will be a positive side, and if more outflow will be there, then it will be a negative side. Then the second category is government or private capital. So, whenever the government capital is referred to as lending and borrowing from foreign countries by the government of a country. So, when we lend our money or we borrow money from the foreign countries, it is considered as a government capital. On the opposite hand, whenever we lend to the foreign or private individuals or institutions to the foreigners and borrowings by them from abroad is signified as private capital. So, these two categories will also be considered as investment, because lending and borrowing both will attract a rate of interest which can be earned as a profit. Short term and long term capital gain. So, of course, long term and short term capital gains or gains on the assets by individuals are also considered as a capital. Short term international capital movement consists of such credit instruments that have maturity of less than 1 year. So, of course, when we talk about negotiable instruments and other credit instruments that are being exchanged between the countries. So, if it is for less than 1 year, it will be considered as short term capital. The short term capital movement can take place through currency, demand deposits, bill of exchange, commercial papers, time deposits up to a maturity of 1 year. That means the extent to which it can be extended is 1 year. So, if it is less than 1 year or 1 year, the short term capital is termed. Then long term capital movement take place through credit instruments having maturity more than 1 year. So, if the credit maturity, that means the time period of payment of credit that you have taken, if it is more than 1 year, then it will be termed as long term capital. So, long term capital movement occurs when the purchase or sale of long term securities or bond take place between the two countries. Direct and portfolio capital. Foreign direct investment means this can be done through capital movement theory. Direct and portfolio capital movement means, the direct means direct investment by foreign capitalists and business institutions in another country. That means now here the businesses or institutions, financial institutions are investing their capital in the other country. Like for example, if we take Amazon is investing a lot of money through FDI in India. So, the money is coming in India, but the whole setup is being done by Amazon. And of course, through FDI, when a business comes in a particular country, a number of opportunities are available for the people living in that country. So, domestic market, we will have an opportunity of employment in that company, and of course, we will be able to earn on prices that are being dependent by the domestic vendors. So, of course, when domestic vendors prices are not regulated, FDIs can help regulate the prices by the domestic vendors through healthy competition. So, the direct investment can take place. The essence of foreign direct investment is that ownership, control and management of business is vested in the foreign investors. Now, of course, FDI is done for the purpose of controlling the management activities of that such business. So, for that purpose, when the companies invest their capital through foreign direct investment, they make the structure of the company such that the essential plans or policies are being regulated by the mother company, and the rest other things are being done by the people of the home country. So, why would India allow people from outside to invest? Only when there will be enough of the employment opportunities for the people of India. So, when other companies come into India for the purpose of selling their product, so of course they have to give a chance for the people of that nation also, so as to earn money or so as to get employment opportunity in that business. Then only both the countries will have the flourishing of the business. So, on the contrary, when we talk about portfolio investment, portfolio consists of holdings of transferable securities. Now, portfolio can be considered as a bunch of flowers where we have different flowers such as bonds, shares, stocks, securities, and in different ratios and different proportions. But Here the investing company does not have any kind of control. So this can also be done when we do not wish to start a business in that country, when we do not intend to start up any kind of business in that country, we just want to invest our money and get something in return, that is rate of return. So this was the capital movement theory, where we studied the capital, how capital moves from one country to another, what are the different kinds of capital and their category. Now of course, when we are not able to move the capital, or when we are able to move the capital and it faces some kind of imperfections. So of course, when product and services are taken up, it deals with market. Now we need to study the market also. So for that purpose, market can be imperfect, because a perfect market never exists. Now what is a perfect market? See, for example, if you see buyers and sellers, a perfect example, assumptions of a perfect examples are buyers and sellers are both price takers. That means buyers will fix the price of their own and sellers will fix the price of their own, which is not a real situation at all. Buyers fix a price which will include their manufacturing cost and other costs also, and of course buyer will try to earn profit from that cost also. Seller will try to find out all such alternative products in comparison to your product, where he will be able to get worth of his price. So this is not a real situation which exists in a perfect market. Companies sell virtually identical products. Now it says perfect markets, you have identical products from different countries. This is also not so, because we cannot sell identical products to the customer. Customer wants a change. So if there is an identical product, then of course you will not be able to sell, or you will not be able to increase your customer base for a very long time. Buyers and seller have perfect information. This is the third point. That means perfect market exists where both the buyers and sellers have the information about the product, but this is also not so. Sometimes buyer does not have information about the prices of the product other companies are offering. They may also do not have the information about the substitute products or different other products which are available in the market, which are a competing product of your own product. Similarly, seller may also does not have certain information about the product. So this kind of situation also does not exist. Multiple companies owns a small market share. So and there is no entry to the barrier to the entry or the exit of the companies. This is also not so. So whenever a new company tries to enter into a market, it faces many kinds of problems which is being put up by competitors and other giant companies already in the market. Like for example, suppose Nataraj pencil is already there in the market and a small company with pencil as a product comes up. So it has to look into the prices that are being fixed up by the company, that is Nataraj. Why? Because it is already there in the market and the people are aware of this product. So when the people are aware, they know the quality of the product, they know the price of the product. Now if I want to enter with my product, with my this new kind of pencil, so I need to set up a price where the people will be satisfied with the price, as well as they are satisfied, they may be satisfied with the quality of the product also. So this is also not possible. So if at least any one of the assumption of perfect competition is violated, we get an imperfect market. So if we get an imperfect market, we get an imperfect theory, that is market imperfections theory. So this theory states that when an imperfection in the market makes a transaction less efficient than it could be, the MNCs would take up FDI to internationalize the transaction and thereby remove the imperfections, for example Gap and Nike. So to remove this market imperfections, we need to do foreign direct investments, we need to move towards the other countries, we need to invest our money, we need to manufacture our item in that particular own country, and to remove these imperfections in the domestic market as well as the international market. So, now when we talk about imperfections, these imperfections may be related to domestic market as well as the international market. So, we need to check on these imperfections, and these imperfections will lead to transactions which are very much less efficient than it could be. So, where due to lack of information, due to lack of research and development, we will be at a lesser side, less efficient side. So, to remove this this less efficiency from the market, we need to move into the international market. So, allocate the resources to the most productive users. That means it says, now we have resources, we may have different resources such as man, money, labor, man, money, material. So, these resources should be such allocated in the businesses, that means it should be given to those people who are most productive for it. That means give labor to those who are labor intensive, give material to those who are best in that material use. That means they can use it logistically, and then give the machine to those who are technologically rich. So, then in that case, the foreign direct investment that you have made in the other country will give you a productive outcome, or you will be at a profit end. So, as a result, what we get as a result of this particular imperfections in the market, we get structures like monopolies, monopolistic competition and oligopolies. So, firms in international market are seen as price takers. Why? Because when we see smaller firms in the international market, one firm in the international market, then it is a price taker, it is not a price maker. That means it will follow the suit because it is already a part of, it is a small part of a large foreign market. So, it has to see what other players in the market are already doing. Like for example, I have already taken that Nataraj pencil. Now, it is already a player in the market. Now, if I have to move with my own product, now I have to see what price I can take for my product so that the people are willing to buy my product. So, they can't influence the price because the other players are already there in the market. So, they have to deal with this particular prices that are fixed up by the giant companies and what according to your production cost is allowing you. And for this purpose, government's interference is also important. Why? Because other companies from different countries are coming into your own country. So, who can regulate them? The government can regulate them through tariffs and taxes, so that the companies from different countries may not over exploit your own country. So, for this purpose, government interference is very much important, and operate with imperfect information. For example, automotive companies have moved to US. Now, automotive companies from different countries, they have learned this structure that they are a small part of very big business all over the world. So, now for that purpose, they cannot remain in their home country and keep manufacturing the same product for their domestic market for a longer time. So, for that purpose, they need to move out. So, if they are not exporting, if they are not importing, how will they earn from the other countries? They can do so by moving their offices, by setting up their business in different countries, like different companies have moved to US. Market imperfections theory tell us that the international market certain protections are necessary to safeguard our interests. So, market imperfections theory states that government's interface is very much important when we talk about trade or investment in the other country. Why so? Because for that purpose, if any other we are moving to the other country, we need a kind of safeguard so as to not get exploited from that particular country. Now, free trade is a function of perfect competition. We need to look at ways to get more desirable outcomes. Therefore, interface increases. 4 types of market imperfections are identified. If for example, I have already talked about imperfections, there are basically 4 type of imperfections that we deal with. So, there may be first is when the number of suppliers are less and the number of buyers are less. So, if the number of suppliers are less, we get a model of oligopolistic or monopolistic competition, and it becomes effective in such market. While if the number of customers are less in that market, then vendors face a problem that is called as oligopsony, that means less number of buyers are there, and monopsony, that means only one buyer is there. So, this is a very big problem where we cannot fix a price when the number of customers are less. So, if the number of customers are less, the demand generated will also be less. Second imperfection is heterogeneity of the product, and it aims to create market imperfections. Of course, if there is only one kind of product, identical kind of product, there will be no competition. But if there is different variety of product available for the customer, there will already be a competition in the market. Now, this competition needs to be checked by the companies. So, for that purpose, it is necessary to see this as an imperfection of the market. So, this imperfection can be taken up as a positive side by regularly upgrading our product and differentiating it with the other products already available in the market. The third source of market imperfection arises when the entry barriers are there. National governments do so to an utmost protect their national vendors from international competitors by various means, such as customs, enforcing national engineering standards. Thus, an incumbent, when fear of price war is already established, vendors need to operate with full capacity load to cope with fixed costs or benefit from economies of scale. So, the government comes into play with different customs duties, tariffs and taxes, so as to protect local vendors or domestic vendors from facing strict competition, a strong competition that is being imposed by the companies that are entering in from the international market. So, it is a responsibility of the national government also that so as to protect the interest of the domestic vendors. Now, the fourth kind of imperfections is related to information availability in real markets. So, availability of information for the vendors is also important. The prices differ in different terms of time and location. So, it is important to understand when we move in different time periods and in different locations, the prices of the right from the raw material to the finished goods may differ. So, this difference in prices and their information should be easily available to the vendors. So, we have a criticism for this particular theory. It results in this theory results in innovative management theories, which says market imperfections can be removed by continuously improving, continuously giving knowledge based innovative technologies, and by giving these, by emergence of these technology, we can create a market, we can replace the older market with new technology, and this can be continuously done through international product life cycle. So, we can see that market imperfections theory leads to international product life cycle theory ultimately. Thank you.